when he was on HMS Cumberland, and they'd come through the Suez Canal, and we'd had the, yay, you're coming home, I've not seen you for 6 months, this is really exciting, to less than 4 hours later having a phone call of, I can't tell you where I'm going, I can't tell you what I'm doing, but I'm not coming home, you just have to watch the news. I can only imagine that for so many forces families out there, they have the last minute drafting orders, they have to move, and these families can't prepare their own children for the unknown because these families don't have the answers themselves.
So what are the other issues for military children? How is it, I know, but just to talk to other people, how do you describe it when you're talking to teachers and trying to educate them on the actual needs of military children? What are they?
I would definitely say there is that moment of, okay, we adjust. We sort out our own routine, our own way of doing things. And then they come home. And then you have to readjust all over again.
I know there's some statistics from the Naval Children's Charity that say that, I don't know if it's naval children or military children across the board, but they're less likely to go to university.
You always just have to speak up. For each conference that I've spoken at, I might have influenced a handful of people to go and change their practice. And that handful of people will then influence more people, and then it grows. So my name is Shelly. I am a military partner of 15 years, military wife of 10 years. My husband is a warrant officer in the Royal Navy, and we have 3 children who are aged 18, 12, and I'm currently an assistant head of English. I've been teaching for 17 years, so my career predates my military relationship.
Okay, so you started your career, got it off the ground, and then you met your now husband.
Yeah,
and then all went from there. So have you managed to maintain your career throughout your relationship?
Yes, I've managed to have a career. I think I'm lucky, in all fairness, being a teacher, from the perspective that realistically I could pick my job up and I can teach anywhere. So I've got that. It's not the sort of job that has to be fixed to a particular location. But what I would say is that it can be really tricky sometimes to juggle the whole kind of being a teacher thing. People seem to think, well, you start at 9 o'clock in the morning, you finish at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's it. I think the reality of the times of day, juggling school runs, and I think my biggest challenge this year has been juggling parents' evening. But we did a whole half term where parents' evening was pretty much, we were having a parents' evening every Thursday night, or I was needing to work late every Thursday night. And when my husband wasn't in the country, I think that's perhaps the biggest challenge that a lot of military wives face, is how you juggle your childcare and your career. And I've noticed, certainly as the years have gone on, people that I trained with, so the small number of people that are still in teaching, so many of them are perhaps further ahead than I would like to be in my own career. It can be frustrating sometimes. I see people who are assistant heads and doing different things. And sometimes I have that kind of resentment moment of, I'm not quite where I want to be yet. I would like to be quite ahead, but I've had to be realistic and I've had to juggle.
So a massive disadvantage because of the military lifestyle.
Yeah, I think that it's hard. It's hard working full time as a teacher and being a parent in that respect. And lots of people, the common thing that you hear on an almost weekly basis is, oh, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you juggle it. But sometimes I don't know either. It can be really hard. But I feel really strongly from the perspective that I went to university, I worked really hard to get the career that I've got. And as much as I love and adore my husband, I feel that it's important that I have a career as well. And it's not just his career that takes priority over what I want to do as well.
Absolutely. And have you moved around a fair bit? So you say that you've got a job that you can take with you if you like. So have you done that?
I haven't done a huge amount of it. When we first got together, I was living and working in Wrexham in North Wales. And then I moved down to Taunton in Somerset after spending best part of the year driving up and down the M5 every weekend. We literally just got to the point of it wasn't sustainable. We knew that we wanted to be together, and we moved down here to Taunton. And my husband had his own house. So I moved in with him, with my eldest daughter. And we made the decision at that point that we were going to stay fixed as a family. My husband's literally now just arrived home. He's not been home for a couple of days. For us, Plymouth is an hour and 15-minute drive. So it's commutable, but not on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Financially, it doesn't work. And for the hours that he does, that doesn't necessarily work. But we had, when our middle daughter was born, he was based in Portsmouth. So he had 2 years when he was HMS Sultan doing various promotion courses. And so we were weekend warriors, and we saw each other maybe on a Wednesday afternoon. He would make the effort to drive home, and it's distance-wise not as far to Portsmouth, but the roads are not as kind, unfortunately. And so you're looking at a 3-hour drive, but he'd do that 3-hour drive on a Wednesday afternoon and then still get up on a Thursday morning really early and do a 3-hour drive back just so that we could have that time.
Yeah, it's so hard, isn't it? So I'm in Hale, I'm deep dark Cornwall.
Definitely.
And my husband's Portsmouth. So it's on a good, clear day of the roads, it's 5 hours. But normally, especially now with the summer season, you're looking at 7 or 8 hour driving. Yeah.
Oh, that is painful. That is really painful.
So he may as well be on a ship as far as I'm concerned.
That's what I said. In all fairness, there are some times, because my husband's at FOST at the moment, things change daily, weekly. Yeah, he's done, I don't know, 23, 24 years in the Navy now. So for him, this is a way of life. Oh, I think I'm going to retire. No, you won't. You'll be there. You will be there forever, because that's what he knows, and that's his life. And I'm really proud of him on the grounds of all of the wonderful things he's achieved. And he has. And I think that's the one thing. There are lots of downs to being married to the military, but we've had some really awesome times as well. And we get going to amazing places and meet wonderful people. So I just think these things have to be balanced out, because we can go weeks, sometimes months, without seeing each other. So there has to be those good times. It has to be worth it.
It does.
I don't think a lot of people quite understand what it means to be a military family. My own family certainly don't understand.
No.
I grew up in an area where the military just didn't exist. And there was almost that trepidation when we got together. And even to the point of when he was on HMS Cumberland and they'd come through the Suez Canal, and we'd have the, "Yay, you're coming home. I've not seen you for 6 months. This is really exciting," to less than 4 hours later, having a phone call of, "I can't tell you where I'm going. I can't tell you what I'm doing, but I'm not coming home. You just have to watch the news." And off they went to Libya. And all I could do was try and spot him on the news for a few weeks. And that response of families, oh, you knew what you were getting yourself into, and all of these very helpful comments that people like to make, you can't help who you fall in love with.
No, but I think what you said a minute ago is it's about the good times and the relief when they come back from those trips. It's almost like some kind of elation, isn't it? And you wouldn't get that in a standard mundane kind of relationship, would you?
No, even tonight, I've only not seen him for 2 days, which in the grand scheme of things is absolutely nothing. But we look forward to that family time so much more. And I think we value it so much more because we don't see each other every single day. And we have had the times where we've missed Christmases, birthdays, various anniversaries. So when you do get that time together, you appreciate it so much more. And it does just make it really special.
Yeah, I think, and you just don't get a chance to get bored. I think with the unknown of it and the unpredictability, They keep you on your toes, don't they?
Oh, and they do. And things come up like at the very last minute. So last year, we had the most, I was one night, I got home and I had this really strange message. I had one waiting for me on my Twitter account, on my Facebook account, from somebody who said that he was a BBC researcher and would we be interested in being part of the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall? And it was only, gosh, I don't know, about 10 days before the event was due to happen. Then all of a sudden you're in the Royal Albert Hall and there are people everywhere and it's a hive of activity. The group are turning around saying, really, it's real. We're really here. And it was the most magical, wonderful experience.
Yeah.
But like you say, it was that last minute opportunity, and an opportunity that we never would have had if we didn't have that military connection.
Yeah.
And it's definitely one of the things I will always remember, being part of that homecoming segment and coming off stage and going and picking up my phone and seeing that it had exploded with loads of people saying, "You didn't tell us you were going to be on TV."
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
Like, well, we didn't believe we were going to be on TV, actually. And it's just one of those special moments that you'll be able to look back on and think, yeah, I was there and I did that and I was part of that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And I think these are the just fantastic opportunities that you can have and that you can get. So we take every good thing that comes our way.
So funnily enough, I was just browsing as I was sat here, social media, and I'm on some US groups.
Yeah.
And there's a US Navy group and they're advertising. I'm just going to get out. I took a screenshot. It's a 5-week future military wife readiness course.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So for hello wives, future wives and girlfriends of military service members, it's never too late to gain knowledge and understanding. If you're new to or about to be new to the military lifestyle, don't hesitate to sign up for the course. It's full of knowledge and support that is tailored to the beginning stages of your family's new adventure into the military. No need to feel overwhelmed or alone during this transition.
That's bizarre.
I don't know what to make of it. Would that be a good thing, or would it turn people off and make them dump their partners and be like, oh, I don't want to marry you because I don't want anything to do with that life?
I don't know. I always say to people, I remember like a few years back, there used to be that website, didn't there? Kind of uniform dating. They used to encourage people. I just used to think, you don't really know until you're there what it's going to be like. And it's not always something you'd say to people, yeah, get in and do that. But a course would be quite, because I had to learn quite quickly because I knew absolutely nothing. Living in North Wales, there's nothing there kind of military wise. And I had my eyes opened to a completely different world, a completely different language effectively that was being spoken around me. And sometimes even now, please, can you speak English? Because you're speaking all of these abbreviations. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
No.
There is that. And I was really lucky. I stumbled across a website that used to exist. It no longer exists, called British Forces Sweethearts. And it was a fantastic online platform at the time. And I met a really, at the time, really strong circle of friends who very quickly taught me about what life was going to be like, and being able to share those early experiences with people and talking to people who understood what it was like and what I was talking about was really quite useful. And even now, 15 years later, I'm still in touch with a handful of them, and everybody's gone on with their life. Some people are still attached to the military, some people aren't. But it was a lovely community at the time to be a part of. And I think that does make a difference. I think having a community around you can make a difference. Like, we've never lived on married patch or anything like that. I've basically moved to an area of the country where I have set up my own friend network. But in the last, I'd say probably 3 years, 40 Orlando is literally 5 minutes from the house. And when we were first living here, and even until, probably about 5 years ago, we were saying, please, can we access things on camp? Can we be part of this? And initially it was met with a lot of resistance. because there was this belief of, no, your husband's based in Plymouth. You need to go to the family's things down in Plymouth and access. And it's a long way to go. And you can't access that support. But thankfully, change of people in command and an absolutely fantastic welfare team there now have made such a huge difference to us as a family. And we do a huge amount with them now. And it's about finding your people and finding the people that are going to be supportive of you, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, once you find them, it can be difficult. And I've spoken to lots of, they are all ladies that I've spoken to, that there's a lot of loneliness out there, it seems, which is a shame and it's sad. But I feel once you find your place, then you've made it really, haven't you? You just find your tribe
Yeah.
where
And
you belong.
I think the nature of the beast means it is quite difficult because people come and go so much.
Yeah.
And so many people do move around that with the best will in the world, you think that you're going to stay in touch with people and you don't. And I even find that myself. Friends that I grew up with all the way back up, we'll still message each other on a weekly basis. We'll still have contact like that. But nobody comes down to visit. And that's the bit that I find really hard. It's not for lack of invites. And I suppose life gets busy. So I can imagine within military communities where you've got people moving even more frequently, it can become really difficult in that respect.
I think also friendships can be quite fickle in the military. I know where we've lived on bases and with no ill feeling, but you have your tribe on the base or in the housing area that you live, then you become all best friends and you live in each other's pockets and you help each other, and then you get posted somewhere else. And you can't really, you don't have room in your life to hold on to those relationships and try to build relationships in the new place. So you have to let them go. And they were such an important part of your life for those 3 years. But now you have to let them go and they will have moved on as well. And you have to find new friends because they're not here. The people where you are here.
Yeah, I've had military wife friends like that as well, who, and like you say, we would literally message each other 6 million times a day and we helped each other through some of the most difficult times. But now, unfortunately, we're not in contact anymore, but we've all moved on and we've done completely different things with our lives.
Yeah.
So it does become difficult in that respect. So yeah, things change.
Yeah. But you've managed to hold down your career, which is amazing. So in your messages, you said to me that you are an English teacher, but you like to advocate, or that you advocate for military children. So do you want to tell me a bit about that? So how or why you got into that and what exactly that looks like? What is it that you do?
Yeah, again, from our perspective, being that element of being a military family and having children, it became really important to me from very early on with obviously my eldest. And she had that change of moving from one part of the country to another. We were starting off a new life. And it was really important to me that she had that support network around her as well. As adults, we have made decisions to be in relationships with somebody that's in the military. Children are brought into this world and have no say over the fact that they are a military child. And I don't think people always realize how difficult it can be for these children to transition as often as they do. So we'll have transitions from areas of the country to, in some cases, even different countries in the world. We will have transitions at home where you've got one parent perhaps going away on deployment for a long period of time. And I started looking into the cycle of deployment and looking at all of these things that were affecting my own children at home. And then as I became more familiar with how to deal with this as a family, I started considering how it was impacting on those children in education and realizing that in an area such as Taunton, you've got actually quite a significant proportion of military children, but they were invisible in schools. And that concerned me because I knew what we were going through as a family. And I thought it was really important that actually, as schools, there was some kind of support network and there was some kind of offer for the military families within that school. So at the time, I was working at a school in Bridgewater, and I became the effectively the Forces Children champion. So that those children knew that there was someone that they could go to in school who understood what it was like to experience the separation that they were going through. We welcomed one young man and his family back from a posting in Germany. He had SEN needs as well. And so the school kind of put me in that role just to try and help and support. And then again, to raise awareness, we were doing a school teach meet, and we had to stand up and do a 10-minute presentation about a topic of our choice. So I stood up and talked about being a military family and military children. And it was something that a lot of people hadn't considered. And following on from that, the following week, the head teacher then decided that I needed to go in and do all of the house assemblies the following week to start raising awareness. Then as time moved on, I moved between schools. And again, I was still working with these children, more military children in that instance. And again, I just wanted to make that difference. And although I had an overview at the time, I was head of careers and cultural capital, which is a job title that used to make me cringe. The careers bit was fine. The cultural capital bit always sounded a little bit pretentious. But one of the things that I wanted to do was, as part of cultural capital, I think it's also important that you have an understanding of other people's experiences. And so again, I was having the overview. There was another teacher that was running a group within our school. And then lockdown happened. And again, I had, although I was teaching from home, I think lockdown number one was a lot less pressured for us as teachers. And I started looking online, and people have been telling me for years that Twitter was this amazing place for teachers. I didn't believe them. I was quite skeptical, had no idea how Twitter actually worked, but joined up. And one of the hashtags that stood out to me was Tiny Voices Talk, which happened every Tuesday with a wonderful teacher called Toria Bono. And slowly but surely, we all started talking, we all started interacting, and I still felt very strongly about the element of forces families. And we all got together that summer. So that would have been August 2020. And we actually did our first live CPD online. And Toria just basically gave us the floor, said, you've got 10, 15 minutes, present on a topic that is important to you. I presented about forces families and pupil premium, and it was only a short thing because you could talk for hours about this as an issue. And the feedback was absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't quite understand the level of people, other teachers, being so grateful for that information because they didn't realize themselves. They might know that they've got a forces child in their classroom, but not truly understand what that means and
Yeah.
what family life was like. And it grew from there, really. So the following year, I put myself forward to speak at the New Voices conference in London. So off I went on the train to London and presented there again about forces children. And since then, it's just grown. I've spoken at different events on different military camps. And I think the most exciting thing was that I then, at Tiny Voices, there was going to be a book published and they were looking for suggestions for chapters. And I wrote a chapter and it got selected and then it was published. So I think it's really important that now on a national scale that I know that if I go into a bigger Waterstones, I can go and I can find on a shelf a book that I've been published in about a topic that is, I think, so very important and still a little bit invisible. But it was just my way of giving something back to forces children and forces families, and making people realise that there's money out there, there's help out there are resources out there that perhaps people don't really know about.
There are. So I have the book.
Oh, I go, my God, be
And I had a read. So it arrived yesterday, but I've done a good, I'd say, got through a lot of it. It's very interesting. I'm not in the education sector at all. A lot of it is not relevant to me on a day-to-day basis, but actually I did find a lot of the information quite useful.
Yeah.
Because actually a lot of the information, a lot of the stories and things that people have contributed to this is really around kindness and compassion to students and having the time to listen and take notice. And actually the dinner table conversation today with my little boy, he was saying about a teacher at his school that's retiring. And I said, that's a shame. I really liked her. And she's known as a strict teacher, and a lot of the parents aren't so keen. But I liked her. And he's, oh, typical, trust you to like the strict teacher. And he's only 8. And I said, do you know what, Theo? I said, she's the one teacher, I said, that on one of the days when you had been a bit disruptive in class, she came out to me and she said, oh, I've sat down with Theo today and we've had a really long chat. And he told me this about himself and he told me that about himself. And I'm really positive that tomorrow's going to be a great day. And I said to him, I said, look, people are busy in life. And when someone takes time out of their day to sit and have a conversation and listen to what you have to say, you need to appreciate that and be grateful. She spent some time with you. She knows about you and she's looking forward to learning more about you. And he was like, oh yeah, none of my other teachers have really done that. I was like, exactly. And I said, so I hope sometimes when you see someone that might be struggling a little bit, that you give them the time of day and you can make them feel like that too. And he was like, oh yeah, good idea. It just makes, I think, for a teacher to just give that time and have a bit of kindness and compassion for whatever the issue is that the child has, military child or otherwise. I think it's so important. And that's really what I got from this book and how the takeaway from me that's not in education, because you can relate that to all areas of life, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we were really lucky. We did a book launch in London, and it was amazing that the vast majority of the authors that were kind of there in the book all together in one room. And it was a really special afternoon with everybody coming together. I didn't do it this year, but for the previous 2 years, for the months of the military child in April, I did an A to Z of the life of the military family. So each day was a different letter of the alphabet. And I feel that is perhaps the way I want to go with a future book, doing it as a bit of an A to Z. Not all 100% serious. I think there needs to be some tongue-in-cheek bits and pieces in there as well, just to give people a little bit more of an insight as to what it means to be a forces family. And sometimes I think people might see it as being a little bit doom and gloom, and it, like I said before, it can be, but there are those amazing opportunities as well. And I think the most important thing is that these children, academically, if we look at the statistics, still achieve on par with their peers who have not had to move schools and haven't had to move locations. And that bit's really important. I just feel that there's more work to be done.
Yeah, I know there's some statistics from the Naval Children's Charity that say that, I don't know if it's naval children or military children across the board, but they're less likely to go to university, which I think is really sad.
It is really sad. I've noticed within our own local area, we've got obviously families coming and going all of the time, but I'm part of the local Facebook group. And there are some that are moving to the area and struggling to get their children into school. And that bit really concerns me, that we've got military children who have no choice, again, over the fact that they've got to move. And the schools that are basically their catchment schools, they're being told, no, there's no room. And you've got, at the moment, I think what I read online, you've got married patch in the middle. You've got a child that needs to go to a primary school that's out of the immediate catchment area, that's a 10-minute drive in one direction. And then you've got a child who needs to go to the secondary school that is 20 minutes in the opposite direction. And the offer that is there is, oh yeah, you can have a school bus for the year, but that's, I think, about £970 for the year.
It's a nightmare, because the other issue that we come up against, which I don't know, you might be familiar with, is we moved back from Belgium and we're trying to get our son. So we're in Portsmouth at this point. So we moved from Belgium to Portsmouth. We've been allocated a school, but we wanted him in one that was closer and it was outstanding. And the kind of attitude that we got is that we were trying to pull a fast one, expecting people to bend over backwards for us because we're a military family. And it's, no, that's not what it is. It's just, it's got enough disruption and enough stress, and we've got enough going on being a military family. At least if school can be straightforward, if we could have one that's just a 2-minute walk through the park and also happens to be a really good supportive school that will help with the transition, then can't just give them it, just let them have the space. But they wouldn't. And the attitude was that we was just trying to pull a fast one, getting people to bend the rules for us because we think we're special because we're a military family.
I don't think it's about that. I just think, again, it's about people not understanding necessarily the military covenant.
Yeah.
People sign up to it because it looks good. But then when it actually comes to putting it in practice, and I think sometimes military families do find themselves at a disadvantage because you might be on a waiting list, an NHS waiting list for however long, and you have to move house. And then they say, oh no, sorry, in your new area, you're going back to the bottom of the waiting list. And it's things like that are frustrating. But for children, this is their future. This is their education.
Yeah.
It's what they're basing the rest of their life on. And it's got to be a little bit practical. And I can understand why in the past, certainly, so many kind of military wives especially don't work, because if most of the time, not all the time, but an awful lot of the time, you end up being a single parent, and there's that extra layer of juggling, and it does make it really difficult. So why should these children be disadvantaged anymore than they already are? So this is definitely something. We were involved in Somerset Armed Forces Day last weekend. Massive event in Taunton, 36,500 people through the gates. And it's just about raising the profile of these families. And we were very lucky to be introduced to various important people in the local area. And so I used that opportunity to voice my opinions and raise awareness, because there are so many people that don't. The first conference that I spoke at, the then head of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman, was there in attendance. And she herself said, I had no idea about any of these things. So I knew that Forces Children obviously existed, but she was unaware of a lot of the things that were out there and the experiences that these children were having.
And is this covered then in the Armed Forces Community Covenant? That's what it's called, isn't it? Armed Forces Community Covenant.
Yeah.
So where you said it's just that people aren't understanding it, does that mean that it does cover the education system?
I'm not sure it does in quite the same way. I think from what I gather, this is something that does need to be addressed, because people might have a posting order. They know that they're going to move in X number of months, but they don't have an address, so they can't apply for a school. And that's something that I really do think needs addressing, because again, families are finding themselves at a disadvantage. There are children that can't get places in schools, or you've got multiple children within one family placed in multiple schools, or with school drop-off times at the same time. And perhaps things do need to be a little bit more streamlined, and there has to be that understanding, especially for us. We've got our middle daughter, we're going through an ADHD assessment at the moment. And for her, one of the features, she doesn't do change very well. I can only imagine that for so many Forces families out there, they have the last minute drafting orders, they have to move, and these families can't prepare their own children for the unknown because these families don't have the answers themselves. So I don't think it's a case of, as forces families, we think we should get special treatment. It's more a case of it's a very unique situation.
Yeah.
And perhaps there does need to be that level of understanding behind it.
I think there needs to be some kind of allowance or flexibility to look at an individual family's needs. I don't think it's always going to be a one size fits all. Military families need this and all military family need that. You have to be able to say, we can provide this for this family and we can provide that for that family because that's what they need, without someone else piping up, what about us? It just needs to be, I think, very tailored because the needs are different, aren't they? So with kids, so someone else commented to me in a previous discussion that their school kind of with their kids was just like, oh yeah, dad's working away. And they were like, it's a bit more than working away. And the school was just like, we have children with parents that work away a lot, not just military families, but, you know, doing other jobs where they work away. And I just wonder then, what is the difference? So what are the other issues for military children? How is it? I know, but just to talk to other people, how do you describe it when you're talking to teachers and trying to educate them on the actual needs of military children? What are they?
I would definitely say it's the emotional support. When military children say goodbye to a loved one, and certainly my children are at the age now that they can pick up on this, certainly the 7-year-old is there. They're aware of the fact that the world can be quite a dangerous place. And they know, certainly when my husband was away earlier in the year, he was in the Middle East, there would be issues, obviously, that are happening in the Middle East at the moment. There were all of the drone attacks that were going on. These children don't always know if that person that they love is going to be safe. And there's the difference. You might be working away, you might be on a business trip to a country anywhere in the world, but largely there is that element of safety. Whereas if you're in the military, there is always that possibility. There is always that risk factor. And it is really difficult. And I've been in that position of trying to explain to a child, Daddy was supposed to be home at this time, but things have changed. And now Daddy isn't going to be home at this time. And you have to be really difficult about how you frame, like sensitive rather, how you frame these comments. But you also have to be aware of the fact that there will be other children and other people that they might come into contact with who aren't always as sensitive and might go in there and steamroller and say, oh yeah, this is happening in the news and this is happening. And it does sometimes create that sense of panic. And the children asking, is Daddy safe? You'll always give them that positive answer, or yeah, I'm sure he's absolutely fine, but there's that level of worry for us as well. But it's about the family dynamics changing, I think, because things get tetchy in this house just before a trip away, because you've got that level of anticipation. You know that they're going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's what was described to me once by a Royal Marine as justified jealousy, where you know that they're going away to somewhere in the world. My husband was lucky enough to go and spend a month in Australia last year, whilst I was still juggling home and work and children and everything else that comes with it. And there is that moment of, okay, we adjust. We sort out our own routine, our own way of doing things. And then they come home. And then you have to readjust all over again. And you have to almost get to know each other again in a certain way. So there are all these different things going on, and there might be family members for other children who, like I say, might go away for a week or 2 weeks. I always say hats off, especially to submariner families, because they just, that is on another level. They are superhuman as families to go through that, where you can have somebody away for 9 months with the minimal contact.
Yeah. And I feel claustrophobic even thinking about going on the submarine, and I'm not a claustrophobic person. So the worry that must come with that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And it is hard because we've had moments where communications get turned off and you know that this happens, but it doesn't make it any easier. And the first time it does happen, vividly remember the first time when my husband was away, not long after we got together. And I didn't know that this was a thing at the time. And it was still very early on in our relationship. And we went from sending like dozens of emails a day to like nothing. And I think it was about 4 or 5 days that they were shut off at that point. I was absolutely beside myself. I was thinking, has he dumped me? Is he ghosting me? Is the relationship, what's going on? And I spent ages rereading emails that we'd sent to each other. I'm like, no, everything was fine. This is really odd. I don't understand. Whereas now, I don't hear from him. I'm like, oh, they've been turned off. And that's what it is. But yeah, I think for these children as well, you pin your hopes on certain dates and it doesn't happen. And it's just sometimes the unknown can be exciting, but the unknown can be unsettling too.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for the little ones. That can be heartbreaking. So what are the barriers then to providing support in schools?
I would say first and foremost, it's sometimes about a level of understanding. It's not something, although one of the things I was really pleased about is that after Tiny Voices Talk was published, we reached out to a few people and the book was going to be on the recommended reading list for various teacher training courses as well.
Okay.
That was one way that we can drip feed it into.
Yeah.
If you live in a place like Plymouth or you live in a place like Portsmouth, the military, certainly from the Navy's perspective, is very much more visible. But if you're a child, for example, that is, I don't know, living in Leeds, for example, and you've got a family member who is in the Navy doesn't really exist in somewhere like Leeds. You might only have one military child in a classroom. And so that becomes problematic because the level of understanding is not there as it would be in any other kind of military town. So once you've got that barrier, but then you've also got the issue of what to do with the money. Forces People Premium has gone up in recent years. We're on £335 a year per student. I'd say the biggest barrier is that a lot of schools don't actually know how to spend the money and they don't know how to spend it appropriately. They don't follow the guidance. They don't follow the guidelines. And
it doesn't seem much though. Say if you've got one student in your school, like you just said in the example in Leeds, you've got one Navy child and you get £335. There's not much you can do. So the last podcast episode is with a deputy head from a school in Portsmouth where they've got 30% of their students are military. And I don't know if you listened to it, but I recommend it. That school do amazing things for their military children. But they, as she says in the podcast, because they have such a high volume of military children, they get a lot of money from the pupil premium.
Yes, huge amounts of money.
But if you've got one, so you're getting your £335, you can't hire a support staff member, or you can buy some books maybe. What would you do with it?
What would you do? The idea is it's supposed to be, isn't it, for the kind of more about the emotional well-being rather than academic bits and pieces. A lot of schools are saying trips, subsidising uniform, various bits and pieces. It's interesting because on the one hand, the guidance is saying don't spend it on music lessons and various bits and pieces, but it's supposed to be for SEMH needs and emotional needs. My children's school has been amazing. throughout their entire time there at primary school. And they would have conversations with us about what we thought would best benefit our children. Because again, they were looking at it from the point of view of knowing, small child, they were looking at it from the point of view of what did we know our children best? What do we think would be a good thing? And our eldest daughter had saxophone lessons. And our middle daughter had guitar lessons. And although in the guidance it's saying, oh no, don't do that, for them, it gave them an outlet and it gave them something else to focus on and something that they could be excited about. And they could say to daddy, look what I've done, look what I've learnt. And it was really special. I think it's really important that schools have that dialogue with parents as to what they think would best benefit their child. Because like we've said before, with other things, every family is different, every child is different.
Yeah.
And each child's needs might be differently met. I just think it's really important to emphasize the fact that schools shouldn't be putting this all in one money pot.
I agree, but again, I feel like some of the military groups that I'm in, and it's a common question that's asked is, can I ask my child's school what they're doing with this money? And I think the general consensus is, again, it's that opinion from those particular schools that they feel entitled, and it's like goes into the pot. Your child will benefit in one way or another from the money, because they're at the school, and you're just after something because everyone wants to feel special, and that you're saying you're special because you're a military family and you deserve this, that, and the other. And it's such a rubbish attitude to have, but it really it makes people feel difficult for asking. But the deputy head in episode 3 of the podcast, she is all for communicating with school and asking and saying, what are you doing with the money? Can it be used for this to help my child? And I think that's what you're saying as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the more of us that start using our voices as parents as well, the better the situation will become. Again, at the school that I currently work at, we've got a pupil premium lead, and he's hyper aware of the fact that from his perspective, he doesn't think the money is being best used at this moment in time. And so next year, what we're going to be working on as a school is looking at ways that we can make sure that this money is better spent. We have, probably around 20 military children with us at the moment, which is not a huge number, but that's still a chunk of money. And we've decided as a school, we need to start thinking about ways that we can help these children and we can support these children. And so hopefully it'll be early September now. We'll get them all together and we will have that discussion with them.
Yeah.
Because the student voice is so important in schools.
Yeah.
And so getting the input from those children. I think there's also a big difference towards the sorts of things that you can do for a primary school child versus a secondary school child.
Are you primary or secondary?
I'm secondary.
Okay.
So there's an awful lot that is geared towards primary children. But we definitely want to start investigating what we can do at secondary level.
Yeah.
And so it would be getting out there, having the discussions. We haven't run it this year, but I know that we're going to run it next year. We've got basically all the schools in Taunton, 40 Commando, invite them along, a representative from all of the different schools. Then they have a networking day so that they can meet all of the welfare people that are available at 40 Commando. I spoke there a couple of years ago as well, just again to get people within the local community sharing resources and local schools talking to each other, supporting each other. There may be a way of, okay, we've got this many children, pull the money in a different way, use a member of staff in a slightly different way. There are so many possibilities. We've just got to start being a bit creative.
That's it, thinking outside the box a little bit and really drilling down in, as you're saying, the individual needs for the
Yeah.
students at your school, rather than a national policy on what you should and shouldn't do with the money. It's never going to work, is it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what would you say then? Is that your main message to schools, is to deal with it on an individual basis, look at the needs of the students in your
Yeah.
school and go from there and talk
Yes.
about it?
I think communication is the most important thing in a school. There needs to be the communication with the children. There needs to be communication with whoever's looking after these children with regards to the money. I also think I'm really massively against people being fined, especially military families, for taking their children out of school for holidays. And I see it quite often online. Oh, we've asked for a day off for homecoming and we've been told no, it's going to be authorised.
Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah.
say? I don't understand on what grounds you say no.
No,
You've got
that's it.
families that in some cases have been separated for 6 months and they want one day off to welcome that person that they love back
Yeah.
into the country. And it's like,
Try
not going to authorise that. Why?
try
Why
and get a
not?
kid to concentrate in school, knowing that's all happening while they're at school, that their parents coming home.
Well, yeah, well, I've been really lucky. The previous headmaster at my children's school, his brother was in the Marines. So he was always really good and really
Yeah.
understanding about the fact that this was a big deal for us as a family. And so they didn't ever hesitate to authorise days. But it's really sad when you see people battling
Yeah.
and being threatened with fines. And that's really difficult because if you've having that time together as a family post deployment, any period of time being apart from each other is so very important. And having that, oh, if you do that, we're going to fine you, or just to have a little bit of compassion
Yeah.
for the fact that everybody's life circumstances are different,
Yeah.
and let these families be together. And I also see it from the perspective of being a teacher as well. That's really hard because being out of the classroom can cost my school an awful lot of money. And I fully appreciate that. But sometimes that's a frustration about my job, is that I don't have that flexibility. Sometimes I see, oh yeah, I'm flying out to meet them to this country and I'm going to be here. I'm saying, right, I can't do that. There have been times where my husband's been in amazing places. He's like Dubai and can't go. Can't go because I can't take the time out of work. So that bit can be a little bit frustrating as well, because you'd like to have those moments. But I think schools acting on a case-by-case basis with a lot of compassion would make a huge difference to people.
And what about parents then? Because it's going to be military spouses predominantly that would listen to this podcast. So what is the main message that you want to get across to other people married to the military?
Use your voice for good. If
Yeah.
you've got children, make your school aware. So many people don't tick the box to even say that they're a military family. That will make a difference. That will make a huge difference to your family life. But overall, enjoy every opportunity that comes your way, because there will be dark moments, there will be sad moments, there will be moments where you ugly cry and you are fed up and you are miserable and you think, why did I do this? And we've all been there. We've absolutely all been there. But there are so many fantastic opportunities that you can have. Take them. Go on adventures. Make the most of every single day and enjoy it, because it doesn't last forever.
That's it. Absolutely. And it is an exciting life. I love it.
The next few years of our life are planned out. There's a posting abroad on the horizon.
Oh,
For
there
us,
you go.
dream.
Oh my gosh. So episode 2 of the podcast is Georgie Walker. She's an RAF wife, but we met her on Shape. She bloody loves it out there. She
Really?
Yeah.
We were supposed to be, originally we were supposed to be going next year, but as is usual, the military, all the dates changed because it was going to work really well for us because Paige was going to do 9, 10 and 11 out there. We're like, yeah, brilliant, fine, winner. And then the dates changed. And then they said, oh, well, you can still have 3 years, but it'll be from 26. And you will do, but then it meant that Paige would do 10, 11 and 12. I was like, that's not good because
Yeah.
I know that coming back partway through would be an absolute nightmare. She'd probably have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So I said to Rob, be really cheeky and just say, seems as you've moved our dates, is there any chance we can get 4 years instead of 3? And they came back with, yes, it is a bit cheeky, but we don't have anybody lined up to relieve you. So, yeah,
Brilliant.
so that's the plan.
The school's incredible, apparently.
Really. That's good because I want to be able to teach out there as well. I've said that I perhaps wouldn't teach full time, but I'd still like to teach part time.
Yeah.
And I'd quite like to do my master's as well, do some distance learning and potentially write my book. That would be a really good time to do it. When I've a little bit more time. So
there's a couple of things. I don't know if you're interested in listening to episode 2. She
oh my
talks
God,
about
yeah,
being stationed abroad. And you probably already have reached out to people, but I can always put you in touch with Georgie.
Oh, yeah, please.
if
No,
you're
that would be
interested.
wonderful.
Okay.
Because the more information we can get, because I still have so many questions.
And Georgie's amazing. So Georgie, what episode 2 is about, actually, she got diagnosed with cancer while they were out there and has all her breast cancer treatment, because they were so swift and the treatment has been amazing, that actually she managed to beat it. But she puts it down to the amazing
This
healthcare.
is the thing. We saw it as an opportunity as a family that we couldn't pass up. The opportunity to live in such a different culture and experience things, and the opportunity for our children to go to an amazing private school that we wouldn't be able to afford over here. That it's just not a thing. And we saw it as an opportunity that effectively you're halfway around the world. And so the rest of the world that would otherwise be not completely inaccessible, but less accessible, will become more of a reality. So yeah, just go for it. Go for everything that you can possibly get.
I'll put you in touch with Georgie, and shamelessly, I'm going to link you to episode 1 because it's with a lady called Roberta Leenbruggen that's stationed in Germany. She's an army wife. She's doing a PhD distant learning, and she has a group on Facebook. It's called Education, Advice and Support for UK Armed Forces Spouses. It's got 198 members, and it's all people in the British military, spouses, that are going on some kind of educational journey. So distance learning, master's degrees, PhDs, everything. And it's such a supportive, amazing group for people that are studying, with loads of tips and things. So if you do decide to do your master's, it's a useful group.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do it for so many years. I qualified as a teacher 17 years ago. And when I qualified, Manchester Met for the first 2 years, we could have done our masters for free.
Oh, wow.
Which in theory is absolutely amazing. But when you're a newly qualified teacher, and I had a 2-year-old at the time, it was too much. Even friends who'd done the course that started doing their masters that didn't have children were like, this is so much. This is so much to do. And so time's moved on. I've done loads of other qualifications. I'm doing my MPQ in leading teacher development at the moment. So I'm just finding that I'm trying to diversify what I can offer as a teacher to make myself more employable all the way through. I'm assistant head of English at the moment. I'm going to be lead teacher of psychology from September. I've been head of psychology previously at another school. I've done all my careers leader training. I've taught loads of different subjects. I've done drama, history, RS. What else have I done? PSHCE. Just trying to give myself as many opportunities, because that's one thing I noticed with Rob. He's got a portfolio full to bursting with all these different certificates that he's done. He's got like his HGV license. He's got a foundation degree. He's got just every imaginable qualification, management
Yeah.
qualification.
When
And
my
he's done
husband
so
was
much. And I'm like, I need to do this.
when my husband was looking for a job, he's got a job now lined up for when he leaves. But when I looked at his CV, I was just like, your CV is so intimidating. I was like, you've got so much. It was amazing.
Is and it is, it's huge. And that's another sad thing I see with some military wives who are saying, God, I want a job, but I've been out of employment for so long and I don't know what I can do. And perhaps I looked a few years ago and thought, oh, maybe I didn't want to teach anymore. I sat there and thought, what actually am I qualified to do?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And there's some fantastic the Forces Employment charities. So I think Lee J was one of the ones that also commented on your post. And she's fantastic. She's really supportive. If you can get her on the podcast, she's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing because she helped me when I thought my confidence was through the floor. Didn't think I wanted to teach anymore. And I was like, what can I do? Lee was the one that kind of came forward and helped with CVs and all sorts to
Oh, wow.
make me like realize what I could do.
Yeah.
So there are some amazing things out there. I just think that people don't need to be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
The worst they can do is say no. But if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's it. And that comes back to tiny voices talk, doesn't it? Because you have to
Yeah,
speak up.
you absolutely do. You always just have to speak up. There are going to be people out there that will listen to you and will adapt what they do to help you. And I find that certainly within the world of education. For each conference that I've spoken at, I might have influenced a handful of people to go and change their practice. And that handful of people will then influence more people. And then it grows. Making people aware of what's out there is just so very important.
Yeah. That's it. I am really grateful for your time and for everything that you're doing to advocate for military children and educating people out there so that they understand the issues that military children face and are able to help and support them. It's really amazing work. And yeah, so I appreciate it. Thank you. And this book that you've contributed to is just amazing. I love it. I keep
Oh, it's
saying amazing.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's a gorgeous book.
It is. It's full of wisdom. It's full of wonderful people. And lots of people like to teach about in our society, unfortunately. But there are some amazing members of staff out there who work tirelessly every single day.
You really
Not
care.
just for military children, for every child that's in our care. And we do. We absolutely care. And we want to make a difference. So if we can start making a difference to those children in our classroom that are worried about the fact that they have to move across the country or make new friends or experience life somewhere completely different, then that's what we've got to do.